also, he's not a messy chef as well. He'd be really tidy over there. Won't have to clean it. Thanks, Branch. Now, some of the most dramatic scenes in big budget TV shows come from inside the courtroom as lawyers and solicitors go head to head. But in real life, more and more people are choosing to represent themselves.
It's often because of cuts to legal aid, making a solicitor unaffordable, as presenter Gordon Smart has been to find out.
An injury, a problem with a landlord, a dispute over a debt. Any of us could find ourselves caught up in a legal dispute when we least expect it. They can be stressful, time-consuming, and expensive.
And that's where traditionally legal aid has come in. It's where people can apply for help with the cost of both legal advice and proceedings where otherwise they wouldn't be able to afford it. But today, fewer people than ever can access it.
Funding for legal aid in England and Wales has fallen by almost a third in recent years, meaning that the majority of people no longer qualify for aid in civil cases. And that leaves some people with no other option but to represent themselves.
That makes someone what is known as a litigant in person. Effectively, you're both litigant, somebody involved in a lawsuit, and solicitor, which requires you to understand complex laws and the system.
That can be a daunting prospect, as Lisa Murray from East Yorkshire discovered when she was made unemployed during the first lockdown.
Lisa, what happened?
The company were making redundancies. They had carried out a matrix and scoring. My name had come out at the bottom, and they were going to offer me £1,000 to just leave on top of my statutory redundancy pay.
Lisa declined, but after a consultation period, the company informed Lisa that their decision remained, and she was to leave the company.
You've worked there a long time.
Just over 10 years, yeah, at that point. You never think it's going to happen to you.
Unhappy with the decision, Lisa decided that her only recourse was to pursue legal action for unfair dismissal, but that can be a pricey move.
I didn't realise at that point just how much solicitors' fees could be.
How much were you quoted at the time?
It was anything ranging from a junior solicitor, which was around £100 plus VAT an hour, to a more experienced employment solicitor who was anything from £250 plus VAT upwards. And I knew at that point that if I was going to do anything, I would have to do it myself.
For the next 18 months, Lisa became a litigant in person, representing herself in emails to her former employees' solicitors and in front of judges.
How difficult was it for you getting to grips with self-litigation?
Even the terminology that's used that I knew nothing about, and then the enormity of the fact that you're going to go in front of a judge and you've got to put this case together.
How intimidating is that, Lisa, when you're facing qualified, experienced solicitors?
It's like walking into a playground, and as soon as you walk into that playground, it's game on. And everybody else knows the rules. You're watching the other players. You're seeing how everybody works. So you can start coming back a bit stronger. You feel like you've got a little bit of a hold on it.
I can't believe that the huge files that Lisa has brought along with her today are just a sample of the paperwork she had to put together to help with her case.
What impact did that have on your family, having to deal with all of this whilst bringing up your 2 kids, whilst coping with the pressures of lockdown?
It was hard. I missed out on valuable time with my children, and no amount of, a piece of paper with a judgment on it, no amount of any award that you may receive can buy that time back. It's priceless.
After 18 grueling months, Lisa finally had the verdict she had fought so hard for, when the judge found in favour of her and she won her case and a financial settlement.
In terms of money, was that worthwhile?
For me, especially with unfair dismissal, there is a cap. I actually ended up with just over £8,000. Plus, I'd had no employment for 18 months. So just my transcripts alone were nearly £1,000. So when you really break that down, it really was a drop in the ocean.
But for Lisa, the case was always about more than money.
So the point of principle must have meant so much to you.
People think you lose your job. You don't just lose your job, you lose your self-confidence, you lose your self-esteem, your self-worth. I remember saying to the judge after the judgment that the judgment what you've given me is worth more than any amount that you could award me.
Lisa took on her former employer on her own, but there are charitable organisations in many parts of the country that offer advice and support for people who don't qualify for legal aid. One is the Law Centres Network, which has over 40 offices and is a not-for-profit organisation offering legal advice and representation for those in need. Jason Tetley is director of the Greater Manchester branch.
We received 20,000 contacts from the general public last year. Our largest areas of inquiry are housing, employment, benefits. It could be family issues. Last year, for example, we prevented almost 300 cases of homelessness. That's directly down to the solicitors that we've got in our team.
A decline in legal aid funding over the last 11 years has seen the number of law centres and advice agencies available to the public fall by 59%, but the number of people going to court with no representation has trebled.
It's approximately £230 an hour for a private solicitor in Great Manchester. So there's approximately 15 million people that are either above the legal aid threshold in terms of income, but aren't in a position to be able to afford a lawyer to represent them within the court proceedings. The human story of that is we've got people that are forced to try and represent themselves in court, and if they've got a disability, or if they're distressed by the whole situation, are they in the strongest position to be able to advocate for themselves? I would argue not.
This may seem a little doom and gloom, but like Lisa, you too can be a successful litigant in person, and there are a number of places you can turn to for advice. Organisations such as Advice Now or Citizens Advice may be a good place to start. The Law Centre has over 40 centres dotted across England, Wales and Northern Ireland, and Support Through Court offers help and advice to people facing the court process alone.
If you had one single important piece of advice for somebody considering being a litigant in person, what would it be?
You need to do your homework, you need to be prepared, and you need to look after yourself. Nobody's coming to save you, nobody's going to do it for you, and you're going to get out what you put in.
Get advice as quickly as possible. Get a legal opinion about whether or not you actually have a case.
If you want your day in court, but representing yourself ends up being the only option, go into it with your eyes open and be realistic about the challenge ahead.
And make sure you access all the free support and advice you can in order to give you the best chance of success.
I want Lisa to be my friend.
Fair play to Lisa. I couldn't do that, could you?
Respect.
Incredible amount of work gone into that. Responding to our film, the Ministry of Justice said that legal aid is vital for ensuring access to justice. It said the government has invested significantly to rebuild a neglected system.
It added that it is working on the long-term reform of the legal aid market to make it sustainable and fit for the future.
We're helping